Hello and welcome. I'm Bimbo Oluyede. Tonight, President Buhari concludes visit to Ghana, gives assurances of a new cabinet for September. Compliance with the Treasury's single account is mandatory as ministries and agencies get 5 working days to comply. Sarah petitions federal government, demands a probe into the Abacha loot and the involvement of the World Bank. And German Chancellor Angela Merkel says Germany to speed up asylum procedures and build extra shelter for migrants.
On Business News tonight, Nigeria moves up 5 places in the Ease of Doing Business report of the World Bank Group.
And on Sports News tonight, Team Nigeria off to a golden start, clinched 3 medals at the Athletics Commonwealth Youth Games in Samoa.
We begin tonight with President Buhari's return to Nigeria after rounding off his one-day visit to Ghana with his host president, John Mahama. The two leaders held a closed-door meeting, after which the press was briefed on issues which were discussed. Top on the list was the reformation of the military, which the president of Nigeria deems crucial to his administration. Both leaders also agreed on the ECOWAS biometric card, which would make trading between Ghana and Nigeria much easier. President Buhari also made mention of his cabinet's composition, saying he would be through by the end of this month. Joy Television's Elton Brobby was at the press briefing in Accra and gives us more details.
Two leaders, after their closed-door meeting, spoke to the media, and among the issues that they agreed on is to give proper meaning to the regional integration agenda being championed by the ECOWAS states. Now, to move this a step further, the two leaders, President Muhammadu Buhari and President Mahama, have come together to agree on an ECOWAS biometric card for all ECOWAS members. Now, what this means is that any member of the ECOWAS community can now reside and work in any of the ECOWAS country without any challenge. For example, a Nigerian can come to Ghana, live here and work here, and that person would not have to go through the rigorous immigration procedure. That's one of the issues that they agreed. And furtherance to that, Ghana's Investment Promotion Center recently went to Parliament to amend the law establishing it. Now, among the provisions in the GIPC law is that, ECOWAS nationals who want to engage in the retail business in Ghana will have to come up with a capital of $300,000. That's the condition under which one can give in a license to engage in retail business in Ghana. Now, with the ECOWAS biometric card, which gives right for any ECOWAS country person to reside and work in any country, what President Mahama is going to do is to not go back to the GIPC, to go back to Parliament to amend the portions. Possibly, they may have to step that down, or they may have to review it downwards. And secondly, on the part of President Buhari, he's saying that to address the issue of the Boko Haram insurgency, which has become a major concern, not only to Nigeria, but to some of the West African nations, he's already set in motion plans to reform the Nigerian army, and already they are equipping the Nigerian army with the necessary tools and equipment to ensure that they stand in readiness to fight the Boko Haram set.
Still on the president's visit to Ghana, President Muhammadu Buhari told a gathering in Aburi in Ghana that he has declared his assets 4 times in the course of offering service to the country. He says the first time was in 1975 when the then head of state, Murtala Muhammad, lined them up as governors. They took oaths of office and then declared their assets. And then again, as petroleum minister under former President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration, he declared his assets. And for the 3rd time, as a military head of state, he was compelled by law to declare his assets. And now again, as elected president, he has declared. He then advised every Nigerian serving the country to follow his example, as it is necessary by law. The president has set a deadline of Tuesday, September the 15th, for full compliance with his directive that all revenue due to the federal government or any of its agencies must be paid into the Treasury Single Account, TSA, or designated accounts maintained and operated in the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. A circular issued to all ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government by the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Mr. Danladi Kifasi, is asking the MDAs to ensure strict compliance with the deadline to avoid sanctions. President Muhammadu Buhari had on August the 9th ordered each and every federal government ministry, department or agency to start paying into a Treasury single account for all government revenues, incomes and other receipts. According to the directive, the measure is specifically to promote transparency and facilitate compliance with Sections 80 and 162 of the 1999 Constitution. The TSA is a set of linked bank accounts through which government transacts all its receipts and payments and is given a consolidated view of its cash position whenever it is needed. Joining me now on the news at 10 is Mr. Orji Udemezwe, banking and finance analyst. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
Well, the President has given an ultimatum regarding the use of the Treasury single account. Does this ultimatum suggest to you that there's any reluctance on the part of the MDAs to comply?
Yeah, as expected, not every ministry or department or agency of government will be willing to submit to this new instruction. You know, a lot of people feed fat on the inefficiencies or rigidities we find in our public finance system. So you don't expect people to give away some of the, seemingly corrupt ways they enrich themselves. So we expect this drudgery, we expect this slow response, and a test of will. I will call it a test of will. People want to know whether the president is serious this time around to get this thing done, because this thing has been on the table as a way to bring about efficiency in our public financial management over the years. In fact, almost over a decade. Successive governments had had to tinker with this idea, but none had had the openness of purpose or what I may say political will to get it actually done. President Jonathan attempted this because in his economic team, they found that there was need to plug every loophole, to plug the leakages and ensure transparency and accountability in the way the federal government public finance is run. So they knew that, and they actually set a date, February 28th, for all revenue bank accounts, you know, being housed in multiple different accounts of commercial banks, for them to all begin to move into a consolidated account of government. So this reluctance was expected, but I think the body language, the nuances, the utterances, and the fact the actions being taken by the current president is beginning to now show that it's no longer business as usual when it comes to transparency and accountability. All
right, but be that as it may, does the central bank actually have the capacity to absorb the upsurge in this financial activity?
I raised this question a few days ago when I was in this same studio to talk about this matter. There's a big challenge for the central bank to ensure that they have the appropriate technology infrastructure, manpower, and other resources required to provide these compulsory retail banking services they now have to provide to all ministries, departments, and agencies of government. One can argue that CBN had done this before. CBN at some point in the past had taken over every retail banking activity for all MDAs of government. At some point, it was found to be inimical to the growth of the commercial banking system, so they gave it up again. So one would want to assume that they know what it takes to run these retail banking services for MDAs. But one would now be in doubt as to whether, considering the level of technological advancement banking has got into now, whether CBN has the capacity to provide modernized and a very efficient banking services with the robust IT infrastructure required to service this these MDAs to ensure that their operations continue to move on smoothly and without undue obstructions.
Well, even if they can handle this upsurge, sustenance has often been a challenge too. So does the TSA have the structures that can sustain it?
That's where I come in again now to say that the deadline, for me, is a statement of good intention of Mr. President. But I think it will not solve the issues we have with TSA. You know, we need to begin to imbibe systemic, thinking process in our public policies. It's enough to give a deadline and to follow it up with a threat of sanction. I mean, it's not enough to just give that and give sanctions as carrot and stick method. It's also very important to look at the systemic or methodical or very orderly way to make sure that every stakeholder complies with this policy. It's in the best interest of Mr. President as well as the heads of these MDAs to ensure that this policy works. Therefore, I expect proper communication of this policy, proper engagement of all the officials involved, training, and then some level of reorientation. This is going to involve a huge culture change. And culture change in every organization cannot be ordered. You can't order change, but you can influence, you can lead, you can mentor, you can inspire, and you can motivate change.
So there is a process.
So what I expect is that the government will sit back. Well, the order has been given, so on Tuesday we will know. In any case, quite a good number of MDAs have already complied. In fact, some of the very critical ones have complied. We know where we're having issues. And in those places we're having issues, you also have to sit back and look at what are these issues on their merit. An institution like NNPC, for example, let me say this, requires a careful, transition for whatever they're doing right now to this TSA, because there are financial obligations that just don't depend on them. You have joint venture agreements that involve cash call obligations that must be made when they are due. Otherwise, you will end up, infringing or derailing or obstructing the smooth operations of these agencies, which also will, inadvertently, hurt the system.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all command?
Not at all. You must have to look at those. Of course, when you look at Mr. President's memo coming from the media team, you find that they also put a proviso that everybody must comply, except, you look at the except where appropriate approvals have been put in place. And I expect, as a matter of fact, that some appropriate approvals must be put in place for one or two agencies, so that we can get the process right the first time and get it right all the time. Otherwise, we might hurry into this procedure and then hurry back to it, and it will not give some strength to the authority of the presidency when such orders are given. So I may see a situation whereby on Tuesday the presidency may refuse to change that instruction, but in actual fact, not everybody has complied. They have to find a way to manage that system or that situation to deal with that non-compliance.
All right, thank you very much for joining us on the News at 10. I've been speaking with Mr. Orji Udemezwe, a banking and finance analyst. In part 2, after the break, INEC says it's set to hold a free and fair governorship election in Kogi State. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.